Okay, so we're going to go through the derivation of Kepler's third law in this video. Now there's two different ways of showing the derivation because there are two different equations that we use for the centripetal force. Basically, this on the top here is Kepler's third law, and what it shows you is the period of the satellite. So that's large T here, the time it takes to do one full revolution. Is equal to 4 pi squared r cubed over large G large M. So this r here is the radius of the satellite. And the important part of this is it is measured from the center of the planet out to the satellite, not from the surface of the planet. So a lot of questions will give you the height of the satellite above the Earth, and what you have to do then is add on the radius of the Earth to that. Large G is the gravitational constant, that will be in your log tables, and large M is the mass of the planet. Now, for the most questions that we're going to be using, we're talking about Earth, so it's the mass of the Earth, but it can be applied to any planet. So that formula is in your log tables, but you need to be able to derive it. Now, where do we get it from? Two formulas that we start off with. If you think about the satellite up here, it's obviously going in circular motion, and we know anything that travels in circular motion must have a force which we call a centripetal or centripetal force that keeps it traveling in the circle. Without that force, it's going to travel in a straight line according to Newton's first law. So we know that this centripetal force F is equal to m times the mass, m here is the mass of the satellite, so this is going to be small m up here. The radius, which is the distance to the center of the planet, times omega squared, and omega is the angular velocity squared. Now that centripetal force is provided in a satellite by gravity, and we've done a chapter on gravity where we have looked at the force between two objects, the gravitational attraction between two objects, and that's given by this top equation here. So because the centripetal force is provided by the gravitational force, well, we can set them both equal to each other, and that's the starting point for this. So you put both your formulas down and you set them equal to each other. So that's going to give us something that looks like this. So your gravitational force then is equal to your centripetal force. Now, what you have to be careful of here is the fact that you have two m's, a large capital M and a small m. The large capital M is the mass of the planet, but the small m appears on both sides here. So this is the mass of the satellite. So we're able to cancel that out. And we're able to cancel that out because it is on, they're both a multiplication, I suppose. They're both on top of the fractions. Now we're not able to cancel here because this r is a multiply by, whereas this r down here is a divide by. So you're not able to cancel out there. But what we can do is we can get rid of or move this r over. And to move the r from this side, what you're going to do is you are going to divide by r, and then you're also going to divide this side by r. So what does that leave us with? Well, it leaves us with, and I'll move the omega over to this side, omega squared is equal to large G, large M, small m is gone, and r times r squared gives me r cubed. So that's a good formula to know in its own right. But we want to go a little bit further here. And we also know that omega, the angular velocity, is related to the period of a satellite by this formula, 2 pi over t. So anything traveling in circular motion, the angular velocity is 2 pi divided by the period. Now, I'm going to do a little aside to show where that comes from if you are not too sure. This is not needed in the proof, so hence it's an aside. So what is angular velocity? Well, angular velocity is the angle that an object moves through divided by the time. So it's radians per second. So if we rearrange that and bring t over to here, we get the time that something takes to move is the angle that it moves through divided by the angular velocity. Now, what if we want the time that it takes to go through one full circle? And we change now from a small t to a large t, because this is what's known as the period of rotation, or period of an object. So t here, large T, is the time that it takes to go through an angle of 2 pi. So that's a full circle. So that's where we get 2 pi all over omega. My lines are disappearing here. Okay. Again, another very good formula to remember and to have. So we're using that over here. And we are going to substitute in this in for omega here. So we get 2 pi all over t, and that's all to be squared, is equal to large G, large M over r cubed. And when you work out the maths in that, you're squaring every term. So 2 squared is 4, pi squared is pi squared, and t to be squared is t squared. So now you just need to neaten that up. And we're going to invert the fraction over here. You can cross multiply, there's plenty of ways of doing this, but we'll just turn both fractions upside down, invert both sides. You get t squared over 4 pi squared is equal to r cubed all over large G and large M. And finally, that leaves us with t squared is equal to multiply both sides by 4 pi squared, and you get 4 pi squared r cubed divided by large G and large M. And that is Kepler's third law, like I have written just up here. Okay, so that's the first method. Now, if you are trying to recreate this in the exam, you need to do pretty much everything that I have done here. Okay, so starting from this point, state the gravitational force, state the centripetal force, equate, put both of them together, and if you just skip down, that's absolutely fine. They're not going to be picking at your maths on this, but what I would suggest, it's a lot easier to understand the maths and go through it rather than just learning it off. That formula must be present so that you can't just go straight from this line here, right, straight down to this line here without stating that you're using this formula here. Okay, now the second method. So the second method, again, what you're using here is the gravitational force is equal to the centripetal force, but we're using a slightly different formula for the centripetal force. Now this is not the method that we use in the book, but I think this is slightly easier. So we're going to use the centripetal force equation of mv squared all over r. Okay, the gravitational force equation, exactly the same as what we did before, large G, large M, small m, all over r squared. Okay, and you are equating both of those. So you get small m, v squared over r is equal to large G, large M, small m, all over r squared. So you have m appearing in the top of the fraction on both sides. You can cancel that out. And now, because you have r on the bottom of the fraction here and r squared on the bottom of the fraction here, that r cancels out the squared over here. So you're just left with the r. And that leaves you with v squared is equal to G, large G I should say, large M, all over r. So from here, what we're going to look at is a formula to bring in the period. So what is the period of any object? Okay, it's the time to travel the circumference of a circle. And what's the circumference of a circle? It's 2 pi r, and you're dividing it by the velocity that you're traveling. Now, if I do a little aside here to explain this, again, you will not need to do this in the exam, but where am I getting that? I'm getting that from Dad's silly triangle. Speed, distance, time, right? Time from here is distance divided by speed. And this is our distance here, the circumference of the circle, because the period, the time is the time to travel one loop, one full circle. So that's the distance that you travel, and the velocity is your linear speed. And that goes in the bottom there. Okay. So continue from here. We know that t is equal to 2 pi r divided by v. Well, in that case, v then is 2 pi r all over t. Okay? So substitute that into v up here, and we have 2 pi r all over t to be squared is equal to large G, large M all over r. And we're going to square out this side. So everything is multiplied and divided by, so you just square them out. So you get 4 pi squared r squared all over t squared is equal to large G, large M all over r. And when you rearrange that, flip the fraction here, t squared all over 4 pi squared r squared is equal to large G, that's the way around, r over large G, large M. You then are going to multiply across by 4 pi squared r squared, and that gives you t squared is equal to 4 pi squared, and the r squared by the r gives you r cubed all over large G and large M. And that is the finish of that.